Hi, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Rihanna, and welcome back to Fresh Off the Broke.
Fresh Off the Broke is about personal experiences growing up Asian American in a predominantly white community, Asian media, and Asian pop culture in general. Race has always been a sensitive topic. Every day, there's debates over race. With our podcast, we intend to shed light on the experiences of first-generation Asian immigrants, not put them on a pedestal.
We understand that race isn't everything, but there should be an acknowledgement of people of color, the knowledge gap, and the racial divide that will ideally be broken. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the episode. Today, we will be talking about POC and mediocrity.
So, what exactly do we mean when we say people of color and mediocrity? Well, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about, for instance, societal norms, social expectations, dating, and the general representation in the media or what the media chooses to spotlight. And the reason why we're talking about this specific topic of people of color and mediocrity is we're talking about this kind of uneven or unfair demand for people of color to be above average, whether it be in appearance, ability, you name it.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of, for instance, dating, this unrealistic or unfair expectation tends to be pressed more on women, where you see the typical, it's almost become, well, it basically has become kind of a joke where you have the basic, well, heterosexually speaking, you have the basic white boyfriend and then this gorgeous girlfriend who's a person of color.
Yeah.
And people love to poke fun at it because they're saying, like, oh, she looks great. And then he's just there.
Yeah, and he's there.
And that's kind of, I guess, the most popular or the most well-known example of this topic that we're talking about. But we do want to say that before we get into the rest of the episode, especially when we're talking about the dating aspect, that we don't want it to, we're not trying to push the idea that you should be villainizing people, that, for instance, in the media or just online in general, there will be people, people of color, that get mad at other people of color for not dating, quote unquote, within their race and dating white people or just someone that's not of their race because they think that they have to be dating someone of their own race. So, for instance, the Asian male activists that get mad at Asian women or female Asian celebrities that go and date white men or just not Asian guys.
Yeah.
And they think like, oh, look at what they're doing to us. Like, this isn't fair. We do not endorse, support, nor do we push that.
Yeah.
That is not what we're talking about here. We're doing more of an analysis and a discussion of the background of these expectations, and we're not trying to say that if this person shouldn't be villainized just because they choose to date like a white guy or a white girl or a white person.
Yeah.
And this episode also isn't just about white people, but
yeah,
I digress.
Yeah. We are pointing things out, not pointing at people or finger pointing.
Yeah.
So before we even try to understand or answer the question, like, why do POC have to, or in this case, like Asians, why do they have to look their absolute best to be considered like attractive or just stuff like that? First of all, let me give some examples. So let's say you're in school. Oh God, this is such a terrible example. You know what? Let me just say it as a personal example, okay? So basically, when I was in school, there would always be like, boys will be boys and girls will be girls. Like they'll talk about like, oh, like who do you think is attractive, or like stuff like that, you know, like it's not a good thing to do, but like that happened during school. And I always noticed that like whenever it was like an average looking, like not POC, it was always like, oh, like they're fine. Like if they had a good personality, then they'd be automatically attractive to everybody. Um, and I always thought like, oh, that's weird because I think this person is just like, you know, average. But then when it came to a POC who was average, the automatic response by mostly the white kids would be, oh, they're ugly. Like, not, oh, this person's average. I would never, ever, ever hear someone say, like, oh, this POC looks average. I would only ever hear they're beautiful or they're ugly. So that was just like my personal experience with this issue growing up, was that like the most like average, even like leaning towards like good looking in terms of looks, like they would be considered ugly because they weren't like automatically beautiful in term like conventionally attractive type thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was also like that for me. And something that I'm sure a lot of people could relate to, whether personally or they had heard that it happened to someone else, is when people say, "Oh, you're so pretty," or "You're so good looking," for insert race.
Oh yeah. You're so
Or
pretty for an Asian, or you're
yeah,
too pretty to be an Asian. Like what?
in elementary school, I remember this white girl, she said that to me. And then I remember a different time she also said, I don't know why she thought this was a compliment, but she was saying that I was like the prettiest Chinese girl that she knew. And honestly, I don't even really think she knew any. And the thing is, okay, elementary school, they don't really know better, right?
Yeah.
It's a product of other people.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna go chase after them with pitchforks or anything. Not that we were gonna do that with people in general, but
Yeah.
that type of behavior, that way of speaking is comes from probably their parents or
Hmm.
things that they've seen.
Yeah.
And it messes up a lot of children of color's perception of
Yeah.
themselves because for instance, when we talk about on TV or in movies, when the main character or the beautiful person has pin straight hair, well, what is that going to do for people with natural hair?
Hmm.
Or when someone is told that their skin is too dark and then they get a makeover and then they look lighter or something. What is that going to do for people that have like a dark skin tone?
Yeah. Imagine like
Especially,
growing
mhm,
up with that. Like just like growing up with hearing things like, "Oh, you're pretty for an Asian," or "You're pretty for insert race here." Like
mhm.
shapes.
And yeah, it doesn't help that
No.
they're then the side character,
Oh yeah.
or a lot of the times they're probably because we've talked about this in the past, like when we were talking about toxic masculinity, but there's a lot of Asian male characters that are side characters, and then there's considered this loser that can't date,
Yeah.
just can't talk to people, can't socialize at all,
Yeah.
can't get girls, can't get whatever. And why is that? Why is it that it's an automatic thought that people of color just can't, like what is that? What does that come from?
Yeah. And it's interesting, like even just from like a writing perspective, you always have the side character be there because the side character is always the one who is like automatically not like competition for your main
They
character.
kind of help the
Yeah.
main character because the main character looks better.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like they're a character who is safe enough so that the viewer or even the writer doesn't have to worry about like accidental competition with like let's say like the love interest or something like that. Like
Yeah.
And why is the side character always a POC in that case?
Yeah, or even just like if they are competition, it's not actual competition because
Yeah.
they can't stand the chance.
Yeah.
And if people then kind of turn to compensate in different ways. So for instance, if you grow up and you see all that kind of stuff, well, if the white girls or the people that have like these Eurocentric aesthetics
Uh-huh.
are the ones that are liked, then you're gonna want to compensate by being like them.
Yeah.
So trying to wear what they wear,
Uh-huh.
or straightening your hair, or wearing certain colors, and just changing your appearance because
Uh-huh.
you think that that's gonna make you more attractive. And it really sucks because then it, along with compensating, there's also overcompensating,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just really harms the child or the teenager's psyche because
Yeah.
it ruins their sense of self-worth, and they
Yeah.
think that their self-worth is tied to looking good
Yeah.
because we it's not really an opinion to say that an average like white person would probably do better than like a quote unquote like average person of color, like in looks
Yeah.
if we're talking.
Yeah.
Because I mean the whole let's rate all our classmates on
Yeah.
how they look. Or even look at celebrities.
Yeah.
Have you I'm pretty sure a lot of you have seen the ways that people have made fun of certain white male celebrities be for all the hype that they're getting
Mm-hmm.
because they're
They're,
kind of just a guy.
they're literally the most average guy you'll ever see with like a
Yeah.
decent personality.
Yeah.
But they become white boy of the month.
Yeah, exactly. White boy of the month, right? That thing. And there's also, oh, have you've probably seen it. You know the joke that there's a lot of white guys that look like that mouse from
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
movie Flush.
Yeah.
We'll put a picture up
Yeah.
of the mouse. Um, and the thing is, when you have a celebrity that, and okay, so if you are a celebrity or you're someone that is in that kind of industry, you are definitely more prone to comment about your appearance, good or
Uh-huh.
bad, right?
Yeah.
Let's just put that out there.
Yeah.
One thing that happens though, when you have an average or quote unquote like mediocre looking person of color that's a celebrity, they get like dumped on like crazy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you compare that to mediocre like white celebrity, mostly a male celebrity, it's just completely just two ends of a spectrum.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that people aren't calling the mediocre white celebrity. I mean, people are saying that they're not mediocre. There's people saying that, but it's generally more like a joke than as a he's disgustingly ugly. I mean, there are people that say that because when you're a celebrity, people will say
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. You have haters.
But in general, it's just not really the same.
Yeah. And like for the people who argue like, oh, even like mediocre or I was gonna say mediocrity and stopped myself. Mediocre POC, like they don't get dunked on. But like even if they don't, let's just say like mediocre POC don't get any like hate or whatever. Or like whatever. You can't deny that very, very mediocre white men are praised for literally nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you cannot deny that.
And you.
Respectfully. Like I'm sure these guys are nice people, but again,
Yeah, it's just more about like the commentary
yeah.
around it. And the thing is, a lot of the times when we're talking about people that get spotlights or spotlighted. Is that how do you
Spotlight.
say? Pardon?
No,
Spot
that's not right.
spotlit.
Spotlight.
It's okay. People that get highlighted in the
Yeah.
media. There, just change the word if you don't know. People that get highlighted by the media, if you're a person of color and you're not super talented, successful, or good looking, you're probably gonna be overlooked.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but it's the truth. You don't really see or hear anything about them.
Yeah, you have to do something like crazy in order to get noticed in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And if you're mediocre in terms of look, it'll always turn into like a despite their looks thing. And that's
Yeah.
not to say that that doesn't happen to people in general.
Yeah.
That actually really sucks though, because genuinely, I I only see it that way. Well, not I see it that way, but that's all I see. I never really see anything about like a celebrity of color.
Yeah.
Even nepotism babies that are people of color, with the exception of maybe like, I don't know, the Smith.
Yeah.
Other people you just don't really hear as much about them. But then like look at all the other like white nepotism babies. Like models,
Famous. Yeah.
actors.
Famous straight out of the womb.
Yeah.
Going back to when we were talking about dating, it's very interesting because I know that some people of color would rather date like the most mediocre white girl or like white person in general than a POC just because like they're a POC. They take even okay, objectively, not objectively, conventionally like not attractive people over a POC because
Mm-hmm.
just internalized racism to its finest. Like,
Yeah, there's
wow.
people and some people they get encouraged to date a white person because they're kind of washing out. It's hard to for me to say that out loud,
Yeah.
but they're encouraged to wash out their I guess their genes
Yeah.
in a way.
The color, if you will.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say that out loud because it
Yeah.
sounds and it is terrible.
Yeah. But it is true. Like, people do this
Mhm.
and are aware that they're trying to do it. Like,
Mhm. And the thing is, one thing that can happen in communities of color, especially if you're maybe an immigrant family in the West, is
mhm.
that if you marry a white person, you're helping the family
Yeah.
and it's seen as an upgrade
Yeah.
because further integrated into
Use like
the
Western society, like
yeah, yeah.
you're living the American dream type thing.
Mm-hmm. And this is different than what I was saying before about the entitled, like, oh, how dare you date a white person
Yeah.
instead of me? These are two very different things.
Yeah.
Let's make that clear. And we're
Very,
also not necessarily villainizing these people either because
yeah.
a lot of the time when you have, for instance, internalized anything,
Uh-huh.
you don't always realize it.
Yeah. And it also can stem from a very like, well, not necessarily innocent, but like neutral place. Like what we were saying, like this ideology happens in a lot of like immigrant families because they just
Mm-hmm.
associate like we want to be more like invested in the Western culture, or like we're trying to fit in more.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'd rather go for a like white person rather than someone from where I'm from.
Yeah, or I'd rather you go for it.
Or yeah, parents
Mhm.
instilling that. It's well,
Mhm.
especially parents instilling that in their children.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's very different from an Asian person being like, well, you should date me because you're Asian and
I'm
I said so.
Asian,
Yeah.
and this is just the right thing to do.
Yeah, very
Have
different.
you had something like that or heard something like that in your family?
Um, Not really actually, which I'm lucky for. I think it's because like my my aunties like did marry white men, like some of them married white men, some of them married like Filipino guys. So
Mhm.
or just like I don't have any white aunties actually, so just the women. Um so there's no really like pressure for that because we've already passed that stage of like, oh, marry a white guy.
Mhm.
Um Again, because it's already been achieved in the family. So luckily I don't have that. I just get don't date, period. Like so yeah. What about you?
That's lovely.
Yeah.
For me, I also am lucky that I don't really have that, but it's also for a different reason. It's not like, "Oh, don't worry about this. This
Oh yeah,
isn't." It's more so because I think since we're first generation,
yeah. Mhm.
we're still pretty detached, and the thing is, people view detachment in different ways, right?
Yeah.
And my family is more so that if you were to, for instance, date someone that's not Chinese, let's just go there.
Uh-huh.
They're concerned about communication or cultural differences,
Yeah.
which is a different perspective
Yeah.
that can happen when you have the immigrant family in it. Because some are super concerned about integrating, and then
Uh-huh.
some are concerned about the gaps.
I
Some
also
people want to fill the gaps, and then some people are
yeah,
just like,
can't have gap.
yeah, or maybe they just don't want more gaps.
Yeah. That could be a whole nother episode, but that
It
is
really
also
can
an
be
issue
an episode
for
on the Asian bubble.
we should do that. I
Comment down
forgot
below if you
though.
want that.
My parents are also like that. Or whenever like um we see in like media or even just like in friends and family, stuff like
Hmm.
that. It always whenever there's a like interracial couple that breaks up, my mom always goes, like this person would never understand the family or like the standard. Like she just is like, "Oh yeah, I know why they broke up. It's because like one of them is white and doesn't understand." Um
Yeah.
which, to a certain extent, like that is true. Like that is an issue in a lot of like interracial couples. Like there is a gap that some people cannot fill, and that's a big issue in relationships, and that's completely normal. But at the same time, like, mom, let's not jump to conclusions.
Your mom just like, she finally dumped the white man.
Yeah, yeah. She's always like, oh, I knew this was coming. It's because he's white. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
no.
Or just like, I knew this was coming because he wasn't Chinese.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
he like wasn't insert race enough. Like he's too
Mhm.
whitewashed, or his family raised him too whitewashed.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't really have many white people attached to my family. I have one or two.
Nice.
And I remember when my cousin, she got married to a white man, and it feels weird to say that because in my head I'm thinking they're not going to, but I'm just thinking in my head that they're listening to this right now. It's like I'm just imagining him hearing that I'm calling him a white man. But yeah, when she married him, I remember my parents had brought up to me, they were saying it was more so my mother saying, hypothetically, if I were to also do that, how that could be problematic.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay, let's not jump. We're skipping a couple of steps
Yeah.
here.
Let's tone it down a little bit.
I'm not even.
Take it slow.
Yeah, like I'm not engaged to anybody.
Yeah. Jeez. It's like, why are you threatening me for something that I've never had ever? Like, why?
I'm not engaged. We're already talking about.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about the children?
Yeah, not even close to like anything, but you're already threatening me. But yeah.
Yeah, that was just a concern that was brought up. Let us know if you've ever had that too.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people have. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's a shared experience, which is
Yeah.
surprisingly what this podcast is about. Oh my gosh.
Full
Full
circle.
circle. Whoa,
Yeah.
we said that at the same time.
Full circle again.
Yeah.
And the thing is, uh, going back to what you were saying about people rather dating a mediocre white person, I've had people say to me, like, for instance, some girls of color say that they only want to date white guys, or they would. There was this one girl, excuse me, that I had spoken to that said that she's only willing to date white guys or Asian,
Interesting.
which I thought was interesting. Because the thing is, preferences are one thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Th- just because you have a preference doesn't necessarily mean that you're just
A bad person.
yeah, or you're
Yeah.
racist. It's more
Yeah.
so if you I don't know, the only reason why you like this person or the deciding factor is their race or their skin
Yeah.
tone,
That's
that's a problem.
yeah.
Because sometimes some people prefer dating people of similar cultures to them because then I don't know, they'll have similar values. And
Mhm.
that's something that people care about. Some people don't care and they don't care if someone's very different from them.
Wow.
But some people, I guess there's that level of comfort, which is something that you could also analyze, but we don't know how to do that. And we're not going to do that right now.
No.
And I just thought it was interesting because I was wondering, why is it that you're only willing to date those two types of guys?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, because so you're only willing, and the thing is willing, right?
Yeah. Willing. That's an interesting word to use.
Like you're only willing to date white guys or Asians. And it's interesting that they added Asians because that's you want someone that's at least white adjacent.
Yeah. Needs to have that part.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And all just kind of it all just goes back to the whole like putting Eurocentrism on a
Mm-hmm.
pedestal.
Mm.
I wonder if they still think that way now. I spoke because that conversation was a long time ago.
Mm.
Not 10 years ago, but a few years ago. I
Yeah.
do wonder. We should invite them on and ask them.
Yeah. Comment down below if you want us to interview people who have said they've only ever wanted to date white guys or quote unquote willing to date white
Mm-hmm.
guys or white adjacent.
Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side of the whole mediocre white person of color thing, it raises a question why for a white person to go after a person of color, they have to be that gorgeous or that put
Mm-hmm.
together type of person in order for you to consider being with them. Because there are a lot of people of color that have experienced someone saying to them, "Oh, I don't go for your race, or I don't go for people like you, people of color." And that also messes their psyche up because they think that they're ugly simply because they're a race.
Mm-hmm.
Because we, there's always jokes about how, oh, how how could she go for a guy like that? How could
Yeah.
she go for someone? But you also want to wonder why, like, why does she have to look that way for him to go for her? And we're not talking about specific people, obviously, because
Yeah, yeah.
it's not always that circumstantial or that like he could have just liked her
Yeah, yeah.
if we're talking about a case by case basis. But
Yeah.
generally, if we're talking about the type of like racism and colorism, the stuff that goes on in the dating world, you just wonder,
Yeah.
especially if because I have seen videos of people saying that, oh, this person had only dated white people and then I'm their first person of color.
Ugh. It reminds me of the phrase that's like, I don't normally date insert group of people, but for
Oh
you, I'll make
yeah.
the exception.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really, I don't want to say good one because it's not good, but that's a
Yeah.
really good one.
Yeah.
Or I've never been with a
Insert.
Asian
Yeah.
before. I've never just earlier today I saw someone say that someone had once said to them, I've never kissed an Asian before.
Ew.
Can you imagine I mean, don't imagine this, but the f- the fact that this person was about to kiss them and then decided to say, I've never kissed an Asian before.
It's like, well, now you aren't going to.
Ever.
Ever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Bye.
well, not today. Sorry.
Ugh. Yeah, but that phrase doesn't necessarily only apply to like race.
Mhm.
Just like groups of people.
Mhm.
Very like I can see why people who are not really educated on stuff like this may think that that phrase is harmless, but at the same time, like the phrase I've never insert action with insert group here before is so like, ugh, why
Mhm.
do you have to say it that way? Like, why do you have to point
Yeah.
that out? Why do you feel the
Yeah.
need to point that out?
Yeah. There isn't anything inherently wrong with someone saying to me, "Oh, I've never dated a Chinese girl before." It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." That's not necessary. It kind of depends on the way they say it, when
Yeah.
they say it.
Yeah, it's like if like what you said, if you say it like before you kiss someone, like ew, why do you have to say it? Like this is a really inappropriate time to
Yeah, it
say
just
that.
seems kind of weird that you're putting an emphasis on that right before you're kissing someone.
Yeah, like okay,
Yeah.
you ruined the mood.
Yeah, if
Bye.
we were just having a conversation
Yeah.
and then they said to me, "Oh,
By the way,
before you, I've never dated a Chinese person before. I've never dated an Asian person before." And I was like, "Okay,
yeah,
noted." It's not an inherently bad thing to say.
yeah,
It's a time and place.
there is.
Don't say that right before you're gonna kiss someone.
Yeah.
You're probably not gonna get the kiss. Man, poor girl.
Now, before we end this episode, I both of us just really want to stress, don't villainize people now that we've talked about this. Don't go around calling out couples and like being the mediocrity police.
Imagine the part where you were saying don't do this because of this episode. I'm just thinking a headline. In the aftermath of the recent Fresh Off the Broke
Oh
episode,
God.
people are going around.
Please don't do that.
Imagine we had that type of impact.
Imagine
God,
we get a Next Shark article being like, this podcast started a trend of people calling out couples.
man.
But yes, don't do that.
It's not about that. It's not about the next time you go out and you see a person of color with a white person or just like an interracial couple that you go around being like, stop it,
Huh.
break up,
Like
or
you
just
don't know
judging
them.
them. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
And not every case is like that, you know? It's we're just talking about social norm or these different types of expectation or pressures that are placed on people. It's not that I don't know if I want to say because you could say it's not that deep and you could also say it's not that simple.
Yeah, it's both.
Just take this as one of those deep conversations that you have with a friend.
Yeah.
At night.
Yeah, just
sometime or just when you're hanging out with someone and you start thinking about things.
Yeah.
And then going down a rabbit hole about it.
Yeah. As I said earlier in the episode, we were pointing things out, but not pointing fingers. So
yeah.
Don't be a finger pointer. Please.
Yeah. I am interested though, if we could or just someone could do some type of study or an observation of the ratio of mediocre white boy of the month versus the few times of mediocre person of color is highlighted.
Yeah.
I mean, mediocrity is also subjective, but you get what we're talking about.
Yeah,
you know? When we say mediocre white guy of the month or mediocre white celebrities that are trending and hot right now, you know who they are. We're not going to say them because we don't want to
offend anybody if that's your white boy of the month. You know,
yeah,
no big deal. I get it.
You're not mine, but yours. Enjoy.
Yeah. If you know, you know.
Yep. And now it comes the time that we thank you for tuning in today. Thank you.
Yay.
We're always happy to see you. Or it was nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Welcome. Pardon?
Welcome.
Yeah. I don't know why I stopped for so long. Feel free to leave a comment down below about your experience with this. Have you ever been told, oh, you're good looking or you're cute for insert race? Or even sometimes people say, oh, you're funny for a whatever, or you're smart for a whatever.
Yeah.
Which is messed up in a whole other way. And then we would also like to know if you have do you have a white boy of the month? Don't be shy. We won't judge.
My white boy of the month is Patrick Swayze.
Oh my goodness. I didn't think you were gonna. You see, I knew that, but I didn't think you were gonna announce that on the podcast.
What I could do is I could bleep it out and everyone has to guess forever. But also, I'm not gonna bleep it out because I feel like people should know that.
You want to tell them the movie in particular?
Dirty Dancing. And The Outsiders. But mainly Dirty Dancing because Patrick Swayze in The Outsiders gets overshadowed by everyone. Okay, this is... we need to stop. Comment down below if you like Patrick Swayze. Or The Outsiders. Or Dirty Dancing.
We're continuing this conversation off the record. I need to know your opinion on this. I'd like to hear because it seems like you have an essay ready.
I do, actually.
And you know what? Maybe if you leave enough comments down, if there are enough comments down below, we'll revisit this conversation on air some way time. What should the comment goal be? Like 100?
101.
101? Okay.
Yeah.
If we get 101 comments under this video or under this episode, we'll have, you know what? We'll have an episode about our
white boys of the month.
Yeah, or people that get the pass.
People that get the pass, yeah.
So if you would like to hear that or you would like to laugh at us, comment.
Yeah, guys, I would like to do this episode, so please I will be commenting at least 100.
Yeah. If we do this episode, you're gonna have me say that because I say this in conversation too. I say that like I may or may not retract this at any given moment.
Yeah.
But enough about that.
Yeah.
Just comment anything.
Please.
Say anything.
Anything. It's much appreciated. And if you guys liked this episode and want to stay connected with us, check out
So
our
you
website.
know when that episode comes out.
Yeah. Our description contains links to our streaming platforms such as Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and more. Follow us for more behind-the-scenes content, announcements, and other random things we decide to put on there.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.